This week, we were interviewed on the Informed Traveller podcast with Randy. We had a great conversation and we chatted all about visiting Queensland, especially southeast Queensland. So it was a great summary about the Aussie Summer Series that we've been working on. But this is a great little bonus episode all on its own. So I really hope you enjoy this special little bonus episode with Randy from the Informed Traveller.
Well, we're going to have a conversation now with a couple in Australia who host their own travel podcast, mostly about Australia, titled Beach, Travel, Wine, Three of My Favorite Things. They are Leanne and Lyle McCabe, and they're actually located in Queensland, Australia. So they are going to offer us some tips on traveling to that area of Australia and traveling to Australia in general. Again, their podcast website is beachwinetravel.com. Hello to the both of you.
Hi, Randy.
G'day.
So tell me a little bit about beachwinetravel.com. I was looking at the website and how it began and how you turned it into a podcast and a blog and all the wonderful things. There's a lot of information on there, a lot of it about Australia, but other destinations too.
Oh, thank you. Yes, it was something we started back, when we retired and sold a business. I wanted to do some travel writing and trying to come up with a fancy name that, I thought would be very easy found. And for all of a sudden, I just came up with the Beach Travel Wine, because beach is where we live here on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland. Travel is what we want to do, and wine, because we do like a nice glass of wine and we like to try wine wherever we go. But wine sort of encompasses getting together with friends, family, and enjoying, a meal together. So it was sort of representing our life. So that's where the Beach Travel Wine came in. We get so many compliments on the name. And we just started, I said to Lyle one day, it'd be nice to do a podcast. I just thought it'd be a great thing to do, to keep a good record. I wasn't as good at the travel blogging as I thought I'd be. I found it a lot harder work, and we just decided we're just going to, podcast, and it's become a bit of an obsession, to be honest, but it's lucky that we can do it together, and we tend to complement each other in our skills too. Would you agree?
Yeah, Randy, I just do as I'm told. So,
Good man.
I'm probably a bit older than you, and I work on the philosophy that you can either be right or happy. And so I'm just happy.
You're very happy.
Yeah, very, very happy.
Well, there is the old adage of is it better to be right or is it better to get along? So sometimes it's just better to get along.
That's correct.
Some battles aren't worth winning.
Well, you're located in Queensland. I do have a map of Australia in front of me to help me sort of visualize where you're located, which is on the east coast of Australia. Am I correct with that?
That's correct. We're Queensland sort of takes up basically the top half of the eastern Australia, I guess, and we're sort of right down near the southern border. So that's where we're located. So yeah.
And I did listen to, it was interesting when the introduction to one of your latest podcasts, which you're kind of doing a series on Queensland, and you said, I'm just sort of paraphrasing, but it struck me though, because it's the area that you're located in where you're exploring and finding some of the most unique things. And sometimes we kind of just take it for granted, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So we went out somewhere on Monday and found another few little places that you hear of, but you just don't explore your own backyard enough, I think.
And then when you do find them, generally they surpass what you think they are. So where we are, we're sort of subtropical climate, so everything's beautiful and green, and yeah, it's a beautiful part of the world, and very, very safe.
And again, I'm referring to the map that I'm looking at, and the Queensland area is just north. I'm going to say just north, but it's not far from Sydney. I would think that most people from North America or other parts of the world, when they start an adventure in Australia, that's the place where they're going to fly into is Sydney and kind of branch out from there, right?
I was just going to say, most people we speak to, they fly into Sydney and they then go to right up north of Queensland to Cairns, that sort of area there. So they seem to be the two popular areas that people like to visit when they come here.
And Sydney is Sydney Harbour, the actual city, on the harbour there is stunningly beautiful.
Yeah, with the Opera House and the Sydney Harbour Bridge.
Yeah.
It's a massive big harbour. It's just stunning. It's a beautiful city.
I would think, yeah, I've never been, but I'm assuming that most people are familiar with that just from pictures, postcards, those types of things. That's the one thing I think that people can relate to when they think of Australia. That and maybe kangaroos.
Yep.
is Sydney and the harbour area.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Most people have heard of Sydney, and it's always famous on New Year's Eve with their because one of the first places to put off the fireworks at midnight, and they're on the Harbour Bridge. So and you sort of sail in there or fly over the Opera House. It's pretty iconic, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, just getting back to just traveling in Australia in general, let's just assume that I'm flying into Sydney and I've got off the plane. I've collected my luggage. Help me out. You're my tour guides. What do I need to know? Some of the tips or general things about Australia before I get going.
Well, there's a few things, and it's interesting that some people sort of don't really take this into consideration. We're in the southern hemisphere, so we're the reverse to you guys. So now we're in summer. So traveling down here is complete opposite to where you are. We're enjoying the Christmas time, we're summer holidays, so take that into account as well. Also, like as you said, coming to Sydney, Australia is a massive country. We're the size of the USA, but we only have 27 million people, so it's not as easy to drive around our country. So you would want to be thinking about, if you're going to stay in Sydney for a week in the harbour area, and then you want to be thinking about hopping on a plane to head to your next destination, because driving just takes so much time here. We drive on the other side of the road as well, so that's always a bit confusing for people as well. So it's a couple of things. I think it's probably quite reasonably priced for US and Canada visitors because the conversion rate of the dollar. So
I think today 64 cents.
Yeah, so
for Australian to your dollar,
to the US dollar. So that makes it And another little tip, Randy, is we don't tip here in Australia. We don't, tip our servers and our hospitality people. You can, but it's not something that we do. And the reason we don't do it here is because our workforce, our minimum wage, these they're getting anything from $25, $30 per hour.
Yeah.
For that job. So they're not reliant on tips for their wages. So, so that
we actually get a lot of international backpackers come here
to work
in
hospitality,
so that they can fund their actual overseas holidays to other places because the wages are so good.
So there's something to take into account. And also, you need to bring a sense of humour because we're pretty relaxed, we're pretty chill, and we do swear a lot, us Aussies. So, don't be offended by some of the words that we say because it's just what we do. So,
and taking the piss out of one another is an art form.
Yeah, it is. That's what we do. So, by all means, fly into Sydney, enjoy, the Taronga Zoo and walking around Bondi Beach and go to the northern beaches and all those beautiful places and enjoy the food there on the rocks there, and then hop on a plane. And I would head, as you were saying, up to Brisbane, and then you can enjoy the capital of Queensland, and then maybe explore the two coastal places that we're talking about before you then hop on a plane and head up a bit further north.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the other things is that 95% of Australians live within about 5 kilometres of the beach.
Yeah, so the whole centre of Australia is a desert.
Well, you're getting back to the title of your website. It's three of my favorite things: beach, travel, and wine. By the way, which I was going to mention, but so let's talk about. Okay, I spent a few days in Sydney. Now I want to go to Brisbane, so I hop on a plane, and I'm in Brisbane. And you're my tour guides for a couple of days.
Yeah.
What are some of the highlights of that area? I know you're talking about the beaches, so we got to hit those.
Yeah. Well, as I said, Brisbane, we just explore the city area and South Bank and Kangaroo Point. It's where the cliffs are there, and it's a beautiful part of Brisbane. And then we'd probably just hop on a train and take you down to the Gold Coast, or it's called the Glitter Strip. And the Gold Coast it's quite it's famous for its beaches, and it's famous for
surf.
The surf beaches down there, but also it's famous because it's quite glamorous, and there's a lot of, I think people compare it to Muscle Beach in the US. Is it Venice Muscle Beach there?
Yeah, Venice Beach. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's a bit like that, like there's lots of bodies on display, and
lots of tattoos.
Yeah, lots of glamour, lots of glitter going on, that sort of thing, and really great food. So we'd probably take you to the heart of Surfers Paradise, and have a look around Cavill Avenue, and there's a lovely walk all the way along. You can go for kilometres or miles, and you could hire an e-bike and do that as well. And if you're into it, you could hit the theme parks. Like it's we're home of Australia's biggest theme parks. There we've got the Movie World and Dream World. So if you're,
what's it?
Wet and Wild. If you want to do those sorts of things,
those are like fun.
Very popular. Yeah. And then there's a really good nighttime experience there called the Outback Experience, and it's like a big arena, and it's a show all about Australian farmers, and they've actually got cowboys on horses, and they tell a story, and it's a dinner, and as well. So it's it's pretty great, that performance. So that's called Australian Outback Spectacular.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So that's probably worth. The Gold Coast is worth spending a few days for sure. It's lots of high rises with amazing water views.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then you'd maybe head up to the Sunshine Coast?
Well, I was going to say maybe you go up into the hinterland. So just behind the Gold Coast, there's and even behind the Sunshine Coast, there's about 400 or 500 metres. So you have to work out in feet, Randy. Sorry, I'm not good at that. I think you times it by about 3. So say about 1,200 feet above sea level. It's only about half an hour drive. It's beautiful, lush rainforest and waterfall hikes and things. So if you're into that, you can do all that there as well.
Very nice. Now, you mentioned that this time of year it's summer. Is the weather change very much, or is it pretty much nice all year round, like California or something like that?
Yeah, it is pretty much nice. We get it's humid or it's not, and we probably have a couple of weeks in the middle of winter where you feel it a bit cold, but like generally it's
you get about a week of winter.
We wear shorts and t-shirts nearly all year round. Pretty interesting. Oh, and here's another thing to remember. We're talking about wearing shorts and t-shirts, and we our standard footwear in Australia are thongs. Now, so I know you guys think a thong is underwear. We we call that a G-string here. So no, we don't say that. We say thong. So yeah, that's maybe something people need to get used to as well.
And just going back on the temperature side of it, the temperature, we're just looking. We can see outside our window now, and we're looking at the ocean, and that ocean temperature now is probably about 25
degrees Celsius.
Yeah,
so
okay,
it's nice. Yeah. And one of the things about the Gold Coast, and also here, we'll talk about in a minute, the Sunshine Coast, is we get the it's called the Humpback Highway, and so the humpback whales swim all the way up the Queensland coast every year to give birth to their babies, and then they swim all the way back. So there's literally thousands of them, and we're lucky enough we can see them from where we live, but there's lots of whale watching tours that go out, and you can see it. It's pretty spectacular, actually. It's a really pretty cool thing to do. So so once you've spent time at the Gold Coast, then back to Brisbane, and once again just hop on the train and head up to the Sunshine Coast, which is where we live. So the Sunshine Coast is, as I said, about an hour north of Brisbane, and it sort of spreads from where we are at the south end of that, called Caloundra or Kings Beach, and then it's all the way up the little beach places all the way up to the north, which Noosa is, and a lot of people have heard of Noosa Shire, Noosa Head. So, and lots of different beach places in between. So.
Yeah, Noosa Heads is probably our glitter place.
Yeah, it's glamorous up there, but it's a bit more upmarket.
Oh, it's very upmarket, very, very upmarket.
And you were talking about the podcast we're just doing now. Our latest series is all about the Sunshine Coast. We've been going out and about exploring our own backyard and enjoying that a little bit more as well. So there's a lot to see here. Once it's obviously the beach areas, and you can hire boats and jet skis and learn to surf and all those types of things, fishing charters and things. But there's also lots of little villages that are quite quaint, and a lot of artisans, sort of like where people, a lot of potters and painters, and it's quite a artistic sort of little area as well, isn't
Mm-hmm.
it? Yeah. Well, Leanne and I were talking this morning, and we were just talking about when we go to Europe, we're blown away by the architecture and how old everything is and whatever, and we just love it. But we sort of talked this morning and said, look, for people from Europe or even America to come here, and they could not help be blown away with just how beautiful
the natural beauty of
it. It's outstanding.
Yeah, and like the US and Canada, we have a lot of national park areas which you can visit and hike, and it really is a nature lover's delight, really, isn't it?
Yeah, well, we've heard the same about Canada.
Yeah, haven't
sure.
we? Yeah, well, that's on the list, isn't it?
That's on the list, yeah.
So it'd be worth spending some time, as I said, in this area of Queensland, because it's truly beautiful, and it's something for everybody.
Yeah, it sounds wonderful. If we stop for lunch somewhere, what would you recommend that I would try that's like a local dish or food or something?
Yeah, that's an interesting thing about Australian cuisine. We don't generally have, like something that's just iconic Australian besides, we call it a meat pie. So you often stop at a bakery and, like the little round pastry full of beef mince and stuff. That's pretty popular. But you would probably go for the fish and chips, our seafood, any sort of seafood in Australia. We're the biggest island, we're surrounded by water. Everywhere on the coast is going to have beautiful seafood. Where we live now, we live near where they catch all what they call the Mooloolaba prawns, or shrimp as people know them, but we call them prawns.
Yeah.
And so definitely the
fabulous oysters.
Oh yeah,
crayfish.
So you definitely go to seafood. Yeah. Like we go to a place at Noosa, the Noosa Surf Club, and we sit there with the windows overlooking the beach, and we have a nice glass of wine, and I get what they call the tropical salad. So it's got prawns and mango and avocado. It's so that sort of stuff is very, very nice to have here.
Yeah, and probably one of the things that I enjoy about probably Australian cuisine is actually that they do a lot of Asian fusion, like the really good restaurants.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, they just do a fabulous job with the spices and sauces, and that's my favourite.
Yeah, being
style.
a multicultural country, so we get a lot of variety in the sorts of foods we can eat. Yeah.
Well, it all sounds fabulous. If people want to find out more information about Australia and other parts of the world, go to beachtravelwine.com. You can listen to Lyle and Leanne's podcast. You can read their blog and learn lots of things about Australia like I did. Again, it's beachtravelwine.com, and Lyle and Leanne McCabe are the podcasters, travel bloggers, and founders of that website. It was really fun chatting with you, Lyle and Leanne. We'll have to get you back on again sometime down the road.
That would be great. We've got so much more we could share too.
Yeah, thanks, Randy.
Hi, it's Leanne back again. I'm just popping in to say I hope you enjoyed that interview that we did with Randy. Now, if you want to know more about the Australian places we talked about, then go to the podcast play you're listening on now, and in the description there'll be a link to our Australian series podcast. So I hope you take the time to go and have a look at those, and we'll see you next time on the Beach Travel Wine podcast.